In this video, I want to talk about approaches to work on your concert snare drum buzz roll, your multiple bounce roll. This is a vital component of any percussionist's technique arsenal, and it's something that we ask for in the all-state auditions. So I want to do a video here to talk about how I approach the roll and what I'm listening for when we're evaluating your roll during your audition. So, you probably are already aware that the concept of the roll is that for each movement of the stick, you get multiple bounces, as opposed to one stroke or a double stroke roll like you might use in marching band. Right, so you have single stroke roll, double stroke roll. Then, once you get to 3 and above, then you're starting to get into the multiple bounce rolls. And into our concert buzz roll. So, the way that I work on my buzz roll, so what we want to have happen is, we want, at the moment that the stick hits the head, we want the stick to be perpendicular as possible. So, if you're at an angle, the stick can't bounce back. And so it reduces the number of bounces that you can get. So right when the stick hits the drum, we want the stick to be as flat as possible so that you get the most bounces possible. Right? As opposed to... When we do the stroke, we don't want to pick the tip of the stick up and move it through the arc motion like we do when we're just doing normal strokes on the snare drum. Because we don't want to throw all the velocity of the stick and the force into the head. We want the stick to move perpendicularly. So what I'll do is, when I move to playing a buzz roll, I'll move from a primarily wrist motion to an elbow motion. So if I just do some 16th notes, you can see that I'm using the wrist primarily. Then I'll keep the hand motion, I'll keep the speed of the notes the same, or the speed of the hand motions the same, but I'll move my fulcrum from my wrist back to my elbow as I start the roll, and I'll move between those real quick. So you can see here, elbows using the motion so that the stick more or less moves like an elevator, not the normal stick motion. All right. Now, as you're working on getting more bounces, let's talk a little bit about the grip. I'll show you my right hand here, even though I'm left-handed, so that you can see it clear. When I do snare drum rolls, I hold primarily with the thumb and the middle finger. My index finger is a little bit looser on the stick, and I'm using the index finger to steer. And then if I need any more pressure, then I add my ring finger and my pinky. I don't take them completely off the stick. You don't want your fingers splayed out like that, because then that puts some tension up in your arm. So keep them nearby, because you're going to use them, but they're not restricting the motion of the stick. So the primary pressure is coming from my thumb and my middle finger, with my index finger steering. So when you work on your roll, you can do this on your pad at home, but it works much better, and you will get more feedback if you play on your drum. You can play with the snares off. That's perfectly fine. We'll get to the snare response and sound in just a second. But what you want to do is you want to work on this perpendicular stroke. And as slow as possible, you want to pick your hand up and put it down. Don't worry about trying to connect notes into buzzes right now. Just as at the front idea, you just want to work on getting the most number of rebounds as possible from each motion of the stick. And you can do this all right hands. You can do this as left hands. If you have some basic like quarter note sticking exercises, you can use those as a template to work with. Right. So I'll do, let's say I'll do 4 right hands, 4 left hands, and then 8 alternating, right? So I'll go. as slow as possible. I'm trying to get the most number of bounces that I can. We're not working on the snare drum roll just yet. We're working on getting the most number of bounces out of the stick and the hand motion. Okay, this is going to take a little bit of time to develop, so don't wait to start working on it. Work on it sooner, and you'll see more, sooner and incrementally, and you'll see more development than if you try to cram all this in at the end. So once you can do that, once you have some long buzzes or long multiple bounces in each stroke, then we want to start overlapping them where if we put the right hand down, we're going to put the left hand down before the right hand is finished buzzing in. So we're sort of overlapping the strokes that way. That way when we speed up the hands, then the buzzes from each hand are sort of dovetailing with each other. So hopefully you can see there that I'm putting each hand down before the hand that preceded it is done buzzing, right? And so we want that little overlap there. That's a vital part. We don't want them to be separate, because then when we speed up the hands, then we're going to get, and there's no smoothness to the roll. This is the way that we develop the smoothness in the roll. Nice and loose grip. You can see all the space in my fingers here. Dropping the stick, holding just with the thumb and the forefinger, index fingers steering. Moving flat from the elbow, not moving from the wrist, not arcing the stick, right? Stick moves straight up and down like an elevator. Stick as flat as possible at the moment of impact so that it has the most opportunity to bounce. Right, so often I see students that will be loose in the grip and will try to get more bounces by squeezing their back fingers or moving their wrist. Sometimes you'll see this sort of motion where they're kind of like pulling the stick across the head. You don't want any of that. Straight up, straight down. You can work on both hands together as well. Working on both hands together is a very effective technique, very effective idea when you're learning a new technique, because everybody has a dominant hand and a non-dominant hand. I happen to be left-handed, so I use my left hand to teach my right hand what to do. Right, and then it's up to me to make sure that I'm doing the same thing with both hands. Right, now we spread them back out, or split them back up again. Then very, very gradually, we start to increase the hand speed. We're not changing anything about the technique or the sounds that we're making. We're just doing it more frequently. Right? So now I'll start to speed up my hands a little bit. You'll start to notice the roll smooth out as those buzzes. I'm still trying to keep those buzzes as long as possible. But as I speed up the hand speed, that roll will smooth out because the hands are now overlapping each other a good bit. All right, so I'll start nice and slow, and then I'll build up to sort of a slow roll tempo. almost entirely, the length of the buzzes are almost entirely overlapping each other, given the speed of the hands. All right, so I'll enter right there again, and then I'll speed up a little bit more. Right, so now I'm at a hand speed. That's basically how fast my hands are moving, and then the buzzes are overlapping each other. That's basically a slow orchestral roll speed. Also notice that I'm not practicing this loud. I'm practicing it soft. Right, so I'm playing about maybe slightly above a mezzo piano here if I was critiquing myself. Right, but I'm practicing this soft because it's easier to translate it to loud than it is to practice loud and then translate it to soft. I really enjoy and spend a lot of time working on my buzz rolls at soft dynamics. It's very, very pleasing for me. Right, so I'll sort of enter in at that slow tempo again, speed up a little bit, and then speed up a little bit farther. Notice that I demonstrated there once I got to sort of my fastest tempo that I'm doing right now. I turned off the roll and just showed you the hand speed. It's actually, for single stroke roll, it's not that fast. You don't have to move your hands that fast to have a smooth roll if you're getting lots of buzzes out of each stroke. If I'm only getting 3, it's a very chunky roll. If I squeeze too much, then I get a sort of very choked off roll. Right, so I'm getting, you sort of wind up with a very choked off roll because the notes aren't the strokes aren't overlapping each other anymore. Right, and you're not letting the head vibrate. So you want to relax. Let the drum and the sticks make most of the do most of the work and make most of the sound. Okay, now let's talk about actually working on the roll for the process of your audition. We ask you to crescendo from your softest roll to your loudest roll and back down. For juniors, I think it's 10 or 20 seconds, and then seniors it's 20 or 30 seconds. Moving from piano to forte or pianissimo to fortissimo. As a general rule, hopefully you can see this on the drum here, I have the logo on the snare bed across from me. I do not play past the logo. The reason for that, that's as far as I'll play. If I play past that, I still have 2.5 inches to go before I get to the edge. Since I'm playing on the snare channel, right, so the snares are running underneath the drum this way, and I have the snare strainer here in front of me. If I play past the logo, I lose snare response, and the sound becomes more the drum head, which itself is very high and pingy because I'm playing near the edge, and I lose the snare sound, right? So even if I just do single strokes, you can hopefully hear that there's not a lot of snare sound in that stroke. It's mostly high-pitched edge head sound. If I apply that to a roll, even playing softly, the roll ends up sounding thin and weak because there's no snare response there, right? If I play that roll louder, you'll really hear it. as opposed to. So I don't move past the logo on my head, and I always set the logo up facing away from me. So what you want to do here, as you work on the roll for your audition, you want to start your hands as slow as you can possibly do it and still make a smooth roll. If you start your hands faster, you can play quietly, but the roll has a lot of tension in it. And it doesn't actually end up being that soft, even though you're not hitting the drum very loud. You're hitting the drum a larger number of times, and so there's more energy in the roll. So you want to start the roll as slow and as quietly as you can. All right, so there's my hand speed. Lots of buzzes in each stroke. Then as you gradually crescendo, you're going to speed up your hand speed, and then past a certain point, I can't identify it quantitatively. It's going to happen for everybody a little bit differently based on your hands and your drum and your sticks. As you get louder, you want to reduce the number of buzzes that you're getting per stroke so that you don't choke off the drum, since you're putting more force into it with volume, right? So you don't want to, so if I start slow here, it's sort of very harsh and chunky, and once I add the other hand to that, you can hear the strokes in the roll. Da 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 da. So the way that we keep the roll smooth as we crescendo is to gradually release the pressure on the fingers and let the sticks not bounce quite as much as we move, and then each bounce gets more volume and body and sound out of the drum because we're putting more force into it with the arm and with stick height. All right, so I'll start softly here. The hardest part about playing a roll is starting it. As I move up into mezzo piano, mezzo forte, I'm going to start gradually speeding up my hand speed. Then as I get up to forte and fortissimo, I'm going to relax. Keep the arm movement, stay relaxed, especially up here in your shoulders. Stay relaxed in your wrist and your fingers. Stay relaxed, reduce the number of buzzes. And then we'll get to the highest point of the roll, and I'll stop up there at the top. The other trick with starting the roll, not only is it the most difficult thing, but you have to hear what the roll sounds like before you begin it. You don't want to get, right? You don't want to get all that fuzziness at the beginning. You want to know what the roll is going to sound like and then make that. Okay, so now I'm at my loudest point. My hands are moving the fastest. Right, I started here. But I'm not getting frantic. I'm still staying in control. You can see all the motion coming from the elbow. Wrist is staying rigid but not tight. Buzzes are coming from the fingers, but I'm relaxing the fingers so I get more buzzes. And then as you decrease the dynamic, all of that process works in reverse. You start to slow the hands down, put a tiny bit more pressure on the first knuckle of your middle finger, and you increase the number of buzzes while you're slowing down. When you get to the top of your roll, hold it for just a couple seconds. Indicate to the judge that you are capable of sustaining this roll smoothly at this volume for a couple of seconds, and then you can bring it back down. When we put all of those elements together, then we get a smooth crescendo and decrescendo of our roll over whichever period of time that you need to work with. I would practice this many times every time you work on your snare drum etude. Also practice your rolls with a stopwatch so that you can learn, or a timer on your phone or on your computer or whatever you have, so that you know how long it is you need to gauge how, if we're doing a roll that's 30 seconds long, I have 15 seconds to get loud and 15 seconds to get soft. You don't want to take 20 seconds to get loud, a couple of seconds to sustain, and then get all the way back down to soft in 5 seconds. That's not what we're looking for, right? We want a smooth crescendo and decrescendo over the entire length. And also, those times are not fixed. Those are suggestions. If you roll longer than 10 seconds or 20 seconds or even 30 seconds, that's perfectly fine. What we want to hear is a smooth decrescendo and the range of dynamics that you're capable of playing that smooth roll on the drum. All right, so now I'll finish off this video by giving you a demonstration of the full process here. All right, and there's some concepts and some strategies for working on your snare drum roll crescendo and decrescendo for your All-State audition. Good luck. Happy practicing.